People today take prayer holes for granted. They are very common throughout the United States and in many countries around the world. But why do they call them prayer holes? And how did they develop in the first place? Hi, I'm Dennis Metzler and welcome to The Charge. Today we are going to explore the history of prayer holes. During the 2040s, while the Second Great Depression was raging, poverty throughout the U.S. was quite extreme. Jobs were scarce, money was scarce. Government giving, donations from churches and other nonprofits, and giving from private individuals made a big difference, but so many people were homeless, hungry, and desperate. Many did whatever they could find to ease the psychological pain. For many people, this meant turning to religion. More people than ever turned to God and started joining churches, synagogues, mosques, and temples. Millions of people claimed to find comfort and strength from God through their faith, through gathering together, through worship, and especially through prayer. Dedication to prayer became particularly intense as many individuals, especially single young people, would spend hours a day in prayer. Most people couldn't imagine how you could pray for hours a day, but it became the most natural thing for the prayer people. They would often fast for days on end and pray through the night. But it also became very important to these prayer people where they prayed. They would be out in the wilderness, in the desert, on mountaintops. This was going on all over the country. But the next key step took place in a particular little town, McPherson, Kansas. 3 young men had been praying together consistently and were looking for a better place to pray right in town. Ryan Scott was the leader of the 3, and in an inspired moment, he exclaimed to his friends, "Let's dig 3 holes in my backyard and pray in them." After hours of digging, they found themselves each in a hole praying through the night. Ryan was reminded of the prophet Isaiah, and he shouted to his friends, "Let's take off our clothes and pray naked." They did this till noon the next day. Soon, word got around McPherson, and then the rest of Kansas, and the rest of the country. Before you knew it, the prayer movement had turned to digging holes for prayer. Everybody either seemed to be doing it or talking about those who were doing it. Young women and a few older people joined in, though they were more likely to keep their clothes on. Many couldn't even afford to purchase their own tools, so people were loaning each other their shovels and pickaxes. Many stories were told of individuals finding valuables in their backyards. The prayer hole people would initially have a reputation of being kooky, if not mentally unstable. However, by their lives, they eventually earned a great deal of respect. They were, by and large, the most caring, loving, and helpful people, willing to sacrifice for others. These people were absolutely committed to prayer, and they were as tough as nails. They would be out in the rain and in the mud and in the cold, praying all hours. The prayer hole people were known as the modern equivalent of the ascetic monks from centuries past. Little by little, the economy did get better, and many societal problems became less severe. The media kept repeating the same message. Things were getting better for everybody. Over time, people had jobs and money, and there was much less anxiety, fear, and desperation. And, as some had predicted, people weren't so serious about God, religion, and prayer anymore. But there were still thousands and thousands of prayer holes. As the economy changed, the prayer hole culture changed also. People started wearing clothes in the holes. Others would put a few boards in the holes. Many made a rope ladder to get in and out easier. Little by little, they made their prayer holes bigger and nicer, though some people just filled them up with dirt again. Some dads turned them into forts for their kids. Some people fastened plywood together for the floor, walls, and eventually ceilings with a trapdoor. People brought more and more possessions into their prayer holes, starting with, say, a chair, jug of water, or flashlights. the list of things people might keep in their holes just grew. For many, it became more like camping. People would then run an electrical extension cord in the hole for lights, a space heater, and even small refrigerators. There was then a move towards painting them and decorating them. People still prayed in the holes, but it became more of a hangout space. But everyone called them prayer holes. The better the economy, the more they fixed them up, and the better economy, the less they used them for prayer. Jack Burkhoff ended up playing a significant role in the history of prayer holes. Burkhoff lived and worked in Concordia, Kansas, 87 miles straight north of McPherson. Burkhoff was a contractor and was well aware of the prayer movement, especially as it had developed into the prayer hole movement. Burkhoff was a skilled worker and builder with significant experience in concrete, plumbing, framing, electrical, sheetrock, you name it. Whatever needed building, houses, barns, sheds, garages, you name it, Jack Burkhoff would get a highly trained crew together and get the job done. And he would get the job done well. It wasn't too much longer before a few homeowners really spent some time and money and greatly expanded their prayer holes. For them, it was like having an office or bedroom underground. Word of these new underground backyard rooms traveled quickly. One night, Jack and his contractor buddies were hanging out, doing some drinking, relaxing, dreaming big. That's when the idea hit Burkhoff. Create prefabricated prayer holes, assembly line style. Dig holes with backhoes, install them in people's yards, hook up the electrical, water, heating, air conditioning, and internet, and they are good to go. This idea got his friends excited. They teamed up with an acquaintance to procure venture capital. They found a creative marketing person. They found a lawyer experienced in business law. They dealt with the city, county, and state regarding permits and regulations. They found a building to lease where they could manufacture their prayer holes. And it caught on. Few homeowners were starting to build their own luxury prayer holes, but Jack's company, now called Central Builders, could build them bigger, faster, and nicer for cheaper. They were making fantastic profits and kept growing rapidly. Other companies were springing up to manufacture prayer holes, but Central Builders had the lead. Customers kept coming to them from outside of Kansas, so they began expanding into state after state. People loved the prayer holes, becoming their favorite place to hang out. Businesses all over the country and soon all over the world were replicating Central Builders' efforts. The luxury prayer hole could be suited for any taste or desire. It was an office, a den, a guest room, a studio, a room to rent out. Sometimes tunnels were dug from their homes, created from the home to the prayer hole. Some of them also doubled as tornado shelters. Some people still wanted a simpler look, and they brought their incense, icons, crosses, and other religious paraphernalia into the modern prayer hole. There were several militant atheists that had them installed in their yards, but they still called them prayer holes. And now today, you would have a hard time selling your house in many neighborhoods if you didn't have a prayer hole. Here's one thing that Jack Burkhoff and others who witnessed the development of prayer holes want to make clear. The religious devotion and sacrificial love that the early prayer hole people exhibited is totally different than what we see today. Those prayer hole people were exemplary in the way they cared for and reached out to others. According to Burkhoff, people now are just focused on themselves and their own families. He thinks it has a lot to do with the economy, but also something deeper, which he can't quite pinpoint. Burkhoff says, quote, "I guess with the economy doing better, people don't try as hard to be good. I could have never done what they did, but those prayer hole people back in the day really impressed me." Unquote. That is our brief history of prayer holes. That's how we got from the bare dirt prayer holes of the Second Great Depression to the luxury prayer holes of today. I'm Dennis Metzler, and you've been watching The Charge. please leave a comment below. Don't forget to click the like button and hit subscribe. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace.